last time we were together, we had made a piece. If you recall, we'd gone through all the steps of forming it, and we'd completed the glaze, and we'd put it in the oven. At this stage, the kiln has now cooled down to a temperature below about 250, and so we can now remove the piece. We'll get it out, and it's rather warm right now, so you got to be careful handling it, but now you can see the finished piece and see the effects of the different glazes. If you recall, we used 3 different layers. If you recall also, we took it first and put it 100% into a glaze called muted gold, and then we came back over with a glaze called antique iron, and then we put a rim or a collar right around known as eggshell. So here you can see the effects of the eggshell up close, the little lighter area, and then you can see the effects where there was no eggshell, just the muted gold with the antique iron. You can also see the effect that the texture of the tool, the pottery tool, placed in the piece, so that you get the break of the glaze throughout and really gives it a very nice appearance. You know what we should do now, this piece of course will complete cooling, and then it will be ready for either to be sold or to be given away. And so let's review what we've talked about in this last segment. In a way of reviewing, just go through a couple of things that you'll recall from our previous segments, and that is, we started out of course by having our clay inside the pugger. We pugged it to get all the air and the imperfections out of the clay. Once it came out of the pugger, then we had a piece of homogenized clay, which we, after we had worked it in our hands for a little while, we then put it on the wheel. You saw us throw the piece, and while it was on the wheel, we added the texture to it, and then after the texture and the piece had dried, we then went and we, if you recall, we finished the bottom to give the bottom a good finished little area for the glaze to run to, and of course to have a very smooth bottom. We put our mark on it on the very bottom, which signifies that it was actually made in this studio. And then if you recall, after the piece had been thrown into the piece that you saw, which is now cooled, we got it out of the kiln just a while ago. This piece, after it was thrown, it was brought over just like these that you see on the shelves to allow it to dry. Now, as you look closely, you'll see that these pieces that are in the drying phase are at different stages. You've got some here that have been thrown, had a little texture put on them, had some tops made for those, just got through finishing the tops, and you can notice the difference in the color. Of course, that's because the clay is not as dry on the tops as it is on the vases themselves. Now, one thing that we're going to do in our next segment, we're going to talk about creating a piece out of a slab rolled piece of clay and using a molded concept to create a different piece. This is one of the pieces we're going to talk about, I think, next time. And as you see, it's nothing more than a triangle with the edges brought up. But what this does, this will go into a bathroom, and in the corner where the mirror normally meets the edge of the top of the sink, this will slide into the corner. Be great for putting shampoo, earrings, or things of that nature, and keeping up with your loose change or your different things you have in your bathroom like brushes and combs. So this is a piece we're going to follow next time. We'll also be looking at some of the molded pieces, as I mentioned, where we do the slab piece of clay, we add texture to the edges, and so I hope you will stay tuned and look for more segments to come from Out of My Hands Pottery. And if you have any questions, you feel free to email me and ask those questions, and I'll get right back to you. Thanks again for picking our segments on YouTube.